The day, Okafor knew he was in the wrong church. Church, Mommy does not have her own car. Let's get her one. Okafor almost dropped his Bible. He looked at Pastor Felix, a man who already had 5 cars parked outside, standing on the altar with a wide smile. The congregation clapped and cheered. Some even shouted, "Glory!" But Okafor felt something break inside him. He had been struggling to pay rent. His wife had been out of work for months. Yet, every Sunday, he gave his offerings and tithes, believing that one day God would bless him. But now, he realized the only person truly getting blessed was the pastor. As the service ended, he stepped outside, his mind racing. Near the parking lot, he saw Brother Daniel, a church worker, talking to 2 other members. They were shaking their heads. "My brother," Daniel said, "I have been here for years. This man preaches prosperity, but see us, nothing has changed, but his own life keeps getting better." "Did you hear about Sister Joy?" one of them whispered. Okafor turned to look at him. "What happened?" "She left the church," the man said. "Said pastor was sleeping with her." Okafor's stomach twisted. "I heard the same thing," Daniel added. "Not just her. There are others. He tells them he's praying for their fruitfulness. But not only him, they chop the fruit." Okafor's head spun. How had he not seen this before? The fake miracles, the staged testimonies, the pressure to give money every Sunday while people were suffering. That was the last day Okafor entered that church. And he was not alone. Okafor didn't wait for the closing prayer. He picked up his Bible, tucked it under his arm, and walked out. The sun outside felt different, like he was seeing clearly for the first time. He wasn't the only one leaving. Brother Daniel and the others followed him. "My brother, this is not a church. It's a business," Daniel said. "That man is a politician in a suit," another added. "He knows how to keep people coming. Fear, fake miracles, and sweet talk." As they walked towards the gate, Okafor glanced back at the church building. It was big, beautiful, built with the offerings of struggling members. Meanwhile, many of them couldn't afford school fees or even food. That evening, Okafor's wife, Amaka, noticed his silence. "You left early today," she said. He sighed. "I left for good." She raised an eyebrow. "What happened?" Okafor told her everything. Mommy's car, the fake miracles, the rumors about the pastor and women in the church. When he mentioned Sister Joy, Amaka shook her head. "I knew it," she muttered. "Last month, she told me she was going through special deliverance with pastor. I asked her what that meant, but she changed the topic." Okafor's jaw tightened. And the worst part? He's using the name of God to do all this. That night, Okafor sat outside, staring at the sky. He thought about the years he had spent in that church, hoping for blessings, giving his last money, believing in miracles that never came. Never again. The next Sunday, Okafor didn't go to church, and for the first time in a long time, he felt free. A few days later, Okafor got a call from Brother Daniel. "Have you heard? Sister Joy spoke out." Okafor sat up. "Spoke out? How?" "She told her family what happened with Pastor Felix. They're making noise about it now. The church is trying to keep it quiet." Okafor's chest tightened. "What exactly did she say?" Daniel lowered his voice. "She said Pastor told her she had spiritual blockage, stopping her from getting married. He told her she needed special cleansing and private prayers. From there, one thing led to another." Okafor's head spun. This was worse than he thought. "The church has sent elders to beg her," Daniel continued. They don't want her to go public. They say she should forgive and forget. Okafor shook his head. He had seen this before. Churches covering up evil to protect their so-called men of God. Do you think she will stay quiet? Okafor asked. Daniel sighed. I don't know. Her family is angry. But you know how these things go. Once money enters, stories change. Okafor hung up and rubbed his forehead. He thought about all the young girls in the church, all the women Pastor Felix had probably deceived. That Sunday, he stayed home again. But this time, he wasn't just feeling free, he was feeling angry. The next day, he made a decision. It was time for the truth to come out. Okafor didn't know exactly what to do, but he knew one thing. Keeping quiet was not an option. He called Daniel again. We need to do something. Daniel hesitated. My brother, be careful. These pastors have power. They have money. They have connections. I don't care, Okafor said. If we let this go, more women will suffer. More people will be deceived. This man is not a pastor. He's a fraud. After a long pause, Daniel sighed. Okay, what's the plan? The plan first. They reached out to Sister Joy. At first, she was scared. They're already calling my family, telling them I should not fight the Lord's anointed. She said over the phone, Joy, this is not about God. This is about a man using God's name to cover his wickedness. Okafor told her. She stayed silent for a while. Then she whispered, Okay, I'll talk. Okafor recorded a full story, everything. How Pastor Felix manipulated her, the things he said, how he made her believe sleeping with him was part of a deliverance. Then Okafor and Daniel started talking to other former members. They found more stories. A man who gave his last money to the church, believing a fake prophecy that he would get a big contract. A woman who lost her marriage after Pastor Felix told her husband she had a spirit husband. Another girl, just 19, who was also cleansed by the so-called man of God. It was bigger than they thought. Okafor and Daniel knew the church would try to silence them. So they went online. They created a social media page and started posting the stories. Anonymously at first, they shared testimonies from people who had been deceived. They exposed the fake miracles, the money games, the manipulation, and then they dropped the biggest one, Sister Joy's story. With proof, the internet exploded. People started commenting, sharing their own experiences. Some defended the pastor, others cursed him. Some still refused to believe it. But the truth was out, and there was no going back. The church strikes back. The church fought back immediately. Pastor Felix came online, calling it all lies. The enemy is trying to destroy God's work, he said in a live video. Some members insulted Okafor and Daniel, calling them agents of the devil. Others threatened them, saying they were touching God's anointed. Then, the church released a statement saying Sister Joy was possessed and confused. They claimed she was lying. They even said she was trying to blackmail the pastor. But the damage was done. The story spread. News blogs picked it up. People started questioning. Even some loyal members of the church began to have doubts. And then, more women started speaking up. More secrets started coming out. And Pastor Felix, his empire began to shake. At first, Pastor Felix tried to act like nothing was happening. He still held services, still preached about sowing seeds for divine breakthrough. But things were different now. The congregation wasn't as full as before. People whispered among themselves. Some stared at him with doubt in their eyes. Others simply stopped coming. Then the real trouble started. A popular news station picked up the story. They did interviews with some of the victims, including Sister Joy. She spoke bravely, her face blurred for safety. He told me I needed spiritual cleansing. I trusted him. I believed he was a man of God. But he took advantage of me, she said, voice shaking. More women came forward, sharing similar experiences. Even some former church leaders spoke out. The pressure became too much. The police got involved. One evening, while Pastor Felix was hosting a special prayer session at the church, officers arrived. He was arrested right there on the altar. The same congregation that used to shout glory was now silent, watching their so-called man of God being led away in handcuffs. Some members wept, others left quietly, heads down. Okafor watched the news that night. He let out a deep breath. It was over. A few months passed. The church shut down. Pastor Felix was facing trial. Some of his loyal followers still defended him, saying he was being persecuted. Others finally saw the truth. As for Okafor, he didn't rush into finding another church. He took his time. He read his Bible for himself. He prayed on his own. One day, Daniel called him. There's a small fellowship I've been attending. No drama, no money games, just people seeking God sincerely. You should check it out. Okafor smiled. I just might. For the first time in years, he felt peace. Not the kind that came from a pastor's empty promises, but the kind that came from knowing the truth. Months passed and life moved on. Pastor Felix's trial dragged through the courts, but Okafor had stopped following the case closely. He had done his part. One Sunday morning, as Okafor sat outside drinking garri, Amaka looked at him. So, are you going to Daniel's fellowship today? Okafor thought for a moment. He hadn't stepped inside a church or fellowship since leaving Pastor Felix's ministry. He had spent time studying the Bible for himself, praying in private, and unlearning many of the lies he once believed. I think I will, he finally said. Later that evening, he arrived at the fellowship. It was a simple gathering, just a few people sitting on plastic chairs, worshiping with no loudspeakers, no pressure to give money, no flashy promises of miracles, just faith. As they prayed together, Okafor felt something shift inside him. For the first time in a long time, he wasn't afraid of being deceived. He wasn't following a man, he was following God. And that was enough. Moral of the story: true faith is not for sale. Genuine spirituality cannot be bought with tithes, offerings, or seeds. Any pastor who constantly demands money in exchange for blessings is a businessman, not a servant of God. Question: don't just follow. Blind faith leads to deception. Just because someone holds a Bible and calls themselves a pastor does not mean they are truly doing God's work. Always seek the truth for yourself. Character over charisma. A real man of God is known by his integrity, not by the number of cars he owns or how loud he preaches. Pay attention to a leader's actions, not just their words. Prosperity. Preaching is a trap. Many churches today focus on wealth and luxury while their members struggle. If a pastor lives in a mansion while his congregation suffers, something is deeply wrong. Religious manipulation is real. Many so-called pastors use fear, fake miracles, and emotional manipulation to control their followers. True faith should bring peace and wisdom, not fear and financial exploitation. Justice will always catch up. No matter how powerful or untouchable someone seems, the truth will eventually come out. Corruption and abuse will always have consequences. A church is not a building. Faith is not about attending a flashy church or following a famous pastor. A real relationship with God can happen anywhere, alone in prayer, in small fellowships, or through personal study. Final lesson: don't let anyone make you believe you need them to reach God. The truth is free, and real faith doesn't require payment. We have come to the end of this story, guys. Please comment in the comment section what you've learned so far in this story. And if you are coming across my channel for the first time, please join us as we keep these timeless stories alive. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on your notifications bell so you never miss a new tale. Like, comment, and share this video. Thanks.